Hello, and welcome back to Then We Eat. Today we're going to do something a little different, something that I don't think actually we've done a vegetable yet, so let's get started and we'll show you 3 ways to make asparagus. So today we're going to take on a very controversial topic of asparagus. Hey, don't tune out yet. You haven't seen what we're going to do. So today we're going to show you 3 different ways to do asparagus, none of which involve boiling water. Okay, so the first thing about asparagus you'll find is that they are all different sizes. So you can run from like a pencil size and then get at this time of season quite large up to something like this. We buy our asparagus fresh. Although we have several gardens on the property, you need a lot of space for a limited amount of asparagus, and we happen to have a really good farm just down the road that does an excellent job of growing it, so we just get it there. So that's the first thing. If you're boiling the asparagus, the very first thing you're doing is you're taking away all of the nutrients that are in it, which you don't want to do. So, and of course the other thing to remember is that this guy is going to take a lot longer to cook than this guy will. So when you're making up your little packets or whatever you're doing, try to keep them all about the same size. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do everybody's favorite. We're going to take a little bacon and some rosemary and some asparagus and make up a couple of little bundles. Okay, so we've got some smoked bacon here that we're going to use. And along I've picked out 3 decent sized asparagus. You could go with 4 if they were a little bit smaller, but I think 3 in this case will be just fine. So you don't want to overdo it. You just want a little bit of oil, just enough to just kind of give a little bit to the whole piece of asparagus. So not too much. So now we're just going to give the asparagus a little bit of a coat. Okay, so once you've got them coated in a bit of the oil, then we'll just give it a little bit of salt and pepper. Give that a little toss around. There's normally enough in the bottom of the tray to cover the rest of it. Then we're just going to take just a little sprig of rosemary. It's a little early for us here. We've just got the gardens in about a week ago or so, so our rosemary won't be ready for probably a couple more weeks. So we picked up a little at the store. So what you want to do is just take one of the rosemary sprigs and just put it on top of the asparagus and then wrap the whole thing in bacon. So you should end up with something about like that. Okay, so our asparagus is ready for the oven. The other thing that you can add, which is really good too, is if you just take a cherry tomato and wrap it underneath the bacon. Once again, it's a little early in the season for us, so we'll have some again in a few weeks. So that's one more thing you can do to this. So at this point, you've got the oven at 425, you put it in for about 15-20 minutes and check it, see how the bacon's doing, and we should be good to go. One of the things that I forgot to tell you earlier, I did mention that we get our asparagus fresh. Like this seriously was picked yesterday. It's been in the fridge overnight only because Chris picked it up on his way home last night. Generally with asparagus, what you do if you got it at the store is you'd hold it and you'd snap it. And wherever it broke is the piece that you would throw out, and it's kind of a harder bit. Because these are absolutely fresh, I don't even worry about cutting the bottoms off. If they were here for a couple of days, I'd probably chop the bottoms off as opposed to snap them. But if you're buying them at the grocery store, then what you want to do is hold them like this and then just kind of give them a break and it'll snap somewhere where it's good. You can see this one won't snap because it's so fresh. Okay, so the asparagus wrapped in the bacon is out of the oven. So at this point, let's give it a taste because that's exactly what we should be doing. So you can see the asparagus is cooked fairly nicely. The bacon is just starting to crisp. Now, if you want a crispier bacon, then I would recommend that maybe you just par cook it just a bit before you wrap the asparagus. So let's give this a try. Okay, so just before we give it a try, what I've done is I've just taken the rosemary and moved it aside. Although it makes a great flavor to the asparagus, eating it is not all that pleasant because it's like eating a branch. So anyway, so let's give this a shot. You really can taste the rosemary too. The asparagus still has a bit of a crunch to it. The bacon, in my opinion, is cooked absolutely perfectly. Once again, delicious. That really is good. Okay, so we tried this one. To me, it's a success. The rosemary, I'm telling you, is really good, but We're used to rosemary in the summer. We don't get it in the winter because I can't buy it at the store that it's that good. So it's just a nice fresh flavor. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is we're going to do a tempura asparagus. Really quick, simple. The biggest problem is really getting the fryer out, which is always a pain in the rear end. But in this case, what we're going to do is we've just put maybe 2 inches of oil in the bottom of a really deep pan on the induction burner, and that's the way we're going to do it today. I'm not crazy about doing it this way. We've had a past experience in another part of our family that wasn't very nice, so we try to stay away from it, but today we're going to do it. So in this bowl right here, we have a cup of flour, a quarter cup of cornstarch, and a tablespoon of baking powder. Just a little pinch of salt. Basic, simple, easy ingredients, and then we're just going to add a cup of beer to it nice and slowly so we get a nice smooth batter. Now this batter is going to be pretty thin because it is tempura, so keep that in mind while you're mixing it up. Okay, so I think we're about there. This looks just a little bit thick. I'm going to give it a shot anyway, and then if I do find it's a little thick, we can always add just a little bit more beer. Okay, so we've got the induction burner out, which gave the batter a couple of minutes just to sit. I find with the batter, it's nice to let it sit for a few minutes, then give it another mix, and it just makes the flour break and kind of combine a little bit better. So we've got the induction burner out. It's going to get loud now, as you know, so we'll get this on to about 350, and we'll just let that oil come up to temperature. So I've transferred the batter just into a little flat dish. It'll make it a little bit easier to get the batter onto the asparagus. So all you're going to do is you're just going to dip the asparagus into the batter and kind of let it drain off a bit, and just do that maybe 2 or 3 times. Okay, so our oil's up to temperature, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to take the asparagus, we're just going to let it drain off just a bit, and then if you saw Chris's chicken video, you lay it in the pot very, very carefully so that you don't burn yourself. And then just take the next one and do the same thing. Give it a couple of taps, give it a couple of coats, let it drain off, and you can put the next one in. You want them to cook for maybe 1 to 2 minutes. It's not a very long. Asparagus generally doesn't take very long to cook. We prefer it with just a little bit of a crunch left when we consider it cooked. Some people like it a little bit more. And you're just looking for that batter to brown up a little bit. Okay, so let's do another set now. As you can see, these take no time at all, and they make a really nice appetizer. They actually go really well with the sriracha sauce we made in a video, I think it was back in the fall, but you can find it on our YouTube channel. The other nice thing about doing them this way is that the size doesn't matter quite as bit, because you can take them out. If they're a little bit smaller, you just take them out a little bit earlier, that's all. But the other thing is, as you take them out of the oil, just give them a little bit of salt. It's best to do it as soon as they come out as opposed to waiting till later, so you don't want a ton, just a little bit, just to season them up a bit. The other thing is, just while I think of it, when you take them out, I put them on a piece of paper towel that just collects any of the extra oil that happens to be on the asparagus when it's cooked. So we've got a few of the tempura now done up, so let's give those a try and see what they taste like. So what I've done here is I've just made up just a bit of the sriracha dip that you can find in one of our other videos, just to go with it. Okay, so let's give these a taste. The tempura has a really nice crunch to it, and actually the asparagus has a bit of a crunch to it too in the middle, and I actually kind of like it in this recipe. It adds a bit of texture to the dish. Okay, so this last recipe is a little more fancy, and it's a little more tricky for me because it deals with puff pastry, and I'm not much of a baker. But that being said, let's attack this one and we'll see how it turns out. So the first thing we have to do is to prep our phyllo dough. This came in a box, bought it at the store. No, I don't make it. There's not a hope. So this is a half of a package. So we're going to roll this out to about 10 by 15 or so. So we'll just put a little flour down, and then we'll roll this out. She starts to stick a bit. Just get a little more flour on there. I'm not going to get into a lot of how to flatten this out because I really don't know much about baking, so just suffice it to say you want something about 10 by 15 when you're done so that you can cut it into little pieces. Okay, so once you've got this rolled out, it looks like it's probably about 1/8 of an inch thick or so, maybe a little bit thinner. So then once you've got that done, then all we're going to do is we're just going to take a knife and we're going to cut it into 6 pieces. 2, 4, and 6. Okay, we'll just set these aside for a minute. All right, so once you've got the puff pastry cut into squares, what you're going to do is just put it down and put it at an angle so that it looks more like a diamond. Mine are actually a little rectangle. They actually would work a little bit better if they were square. But anyway, so what I have here is a little bit of butter and honey. I've used salted butter. If you're using unsalted butter, I'd add a little bit of salt as well. There's 3 tablespoons of butter and about a tablespoon of honey. You can adjust the honey up or down depending on how sweet you like it. So, first thing we're going to do is brush the puff pastry with a little bit of butter. Then we're going to take our prosciutto, and we're just going to kind of mound it up into the center of the triangle. A couple of pieces of asparagus, put those on top. Okay, so once you've got the prosciutto on, by the way, this is beautiful prosciutto and it's really tasty. Then we're going to take some Brie. Chris picked up this beautiful Brie yesterday, so let's give this a little taste first before we get going. One thing with cheese, I always like to try it before I use it, just to see what the flavor's like, to see if there's anything else I might want to add to the dish. This is a mild Brie, so there's not a ton of flavor to it, but oh, it's good though. And it's really, really creamy. We'll just take a little piece of the Brie. We'll just plop that in there like that. Then we'll take the puff pastry, pull it over the top, add a little bit more butter. Pull the other piece up over the top and add a little bit more butter. And that's it. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do a couple more, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you how to cook them. Okay, so we have our asparagus ready to go. We've got the oven at 400 degrees. We're going to put it in for about 15 minutes, check it, see if they're nice and brown and the asparagus is about cooked. And if it is, it'll be good to go. If not, we'll pop it in for a couple more minutes. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Okay, so it took about 17 minutes just to get it nice and toasty brown. But other than that, that's it. 400 for 15 to 17 minutes and they should be good to go. So let's give these a try now. We'll see what this is like. This is a little fancier dish. Still not incredibly difficult to make and a great way to eat asparagus. Okay, so let's give this a try. We've got a little bit of the asparagus and puff pastry and that lovely prosciutto. Oh, hot. Really nice flavor from the Brie too. Unlike the tempura battered asparagus, this one's a little softer, and again, it works just perfectly because you've got a little bit of crunch from the crust on the puff pastry. Perfectly cooked, absolutely delicious, and of course, you can't go wrong with prosciutto. So, hopefully, we've given you a few ideas of what you can do with asparagus other than dumping it in boiling water, and hopefully, if you haven't tried asparagus, we've given you a reason to give it a shot. And don't forget, if you like this video, click the like button. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and hit that little notification bell and it'll let you know the next time we're uploading a video. Don't forget, you can also throw it on the barbecue. Other than that, I guess we're complete. So, have a great day.